Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw was from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Of course, this was the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. And WrestleMania, my thoughts on the show in general. I thought night one was very mediocre, and night two I thought was better than night one. It had a much better match card on paper, and night two ended up delivering. Although the John Cena and Cody Rhodes match, I thought at first it was decent. It was very old school, with a slow build, a slow move in the match. But in the end, the match was awful because Travis Scott ended up helping John Cena, which that didn't need to happen. We thought we were going to get The Rock there, but unfortunately, The Rock was nowhere to be found. So, how are we going to remember John Cena's 17th WWE World Championship reign? He got help from Travis Scott. Awful. Absolutely awful. But WrestleMania 41, it was a very mediocre WrestleMania compared to last year's WrestleMania, which last year's WrestleMania was so much better than what we saw with WrestleMania this year in Vegas. But Monday Night Raw, the Raw after WrestleMania, I thought this was a very good show. I thought this was better than both nights of WrestleMania combined. And this was a very newsworthy Monday Night Raw. Of course, the Raw after Mania. We did get appearances from three NXT superstars. We also had the reappearance of a former WWE superstar who hasn't been shown on WWE television in 5 years. So then we got stuff with John Cena, which he opened Monday Night Raw. And then the whole thing in the end with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman. And we got no explanation as to why Paul Heyman turned on his best friend CM Punk and also the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. But we did actually get a shocking moment in that end segment, which is going to lead to a new faction, which I will get to when I talk about that end segment. But the Raw after WrestleMania, this was a very good show tonight. Like I said, a lot better than both nights of WrestleMania combined. But tonight, for the matches, we only had 3 matches. We had the rematch for the Women's Tag Team Championship. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez taking on Lyra, Valkyria and Becky Lynch. And gonna get to what happened after the match with Becky Lynch, as I get to talking about it. We had Iyo Sky, and she had taken on NXT Women's Champion Stephanie Vaquer. Yeah, Stephanie Vaquer ended up appearing tonight on Raw. Of course, tomorrow night she's going to defend the title against Roxanne Perez on NXT. But dream match it was for Iyo and Stephanie Vaquer. And then we had, which you could say is the main event, the Intercontinental Championship was on the line where Dominik Mysterio defended the title against Penta. Yeah, that was Monday Night Raw tonight. So, anyway, let's jump right into the review. Monday Night Raw tonight. opened up with John Cena, the new undisputed WWE champion. And of course, last night, WrestleMania, we saw John Cena defeat Cody Rhodes, thanks to Travis Scott, which was awful. So he ended up, breaking the record. He ends up winning his 17th World Championship, and he surpassed Ric Flair's 16-time reign as champion. So Cena came out, and he came out in his entrance. It was a black screen, and we had Cena making his way out. He got into the ring, and he ended up pointing to Mark Nash, who is the ring announcer of Monday Night Raw. Cena had Mark Nash enter the ring. Cena then handed Nash a sheet of paper. Nash then offered his sincerest apologies because his announcement has been deemed disrespectful. So Nash then ended up reading on the paper, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the greatest of all time, the never-seen 17 Grace in Las Vegas with his presence for the final time, the real champion, John Cena." So Cena then held up the title. He got a mixed reaction from the Vegas crowd there. Of course, people were going, "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." So Cena got on the mic. He held up the title, and he kept saying, "Winners write history." He kept saying that the crowd is not worthy, and they think that on Friday they can bully him. Cena then ended up saying that he stepped into a ring with gold around his waist, and just because they cheer, he's supposed to forgive them. Cena was like to the crowd, "Oh, that's not how a functional relationship works." So Cena ended up asking, "Oh, is that how you treat your wife or kid?" He kept saying just because you show up in a good mood, he can still tell them to go straight to hell. He kept saying to the people that every one of them owes him an apology, and that they lack the courage to do so. So the fans end up booing Cena. And I like the way how Cena wears the championship. He has the straps in front and the whole, title, the WWE logo in the back. Very different, with Cena wearing the title like that. So Cena ended up saying that this has forever been the show where they hijack Monday Night Raw. He kept saying that they're here for all of WrestleMania, and this ticket allows them to take control. Cena ended up saying that the crowd has gone soft. And so the crowd started chanting, "We aren't sorry," to Cena. So Cena ended up saying, "This whole arena is full of lowlifes." He kept saying that the best part is that the crowd doesn't mean anything to him. To which the crowd started chanting "asshole" to Cena. They gave Cena the asshole chant. Cena ended up saying that he may be an anus, but they are a group of idiots. He kept saying that for 25 years, they've called him so much worse. Cena kept saying that he's taken their best shot and still gotten up. And Cena kept saying to the crowd, what makes them think there'll be, them to crack him right now? And that means nothing to them. And that their noise means nothing to him. Cena ended up saying that the only thing that means anything is the 36 dates. So the 36 dates end up appearing on the screen. And he ended up saying, in 36 days, he will be gone. So Cena then listed the dates that he's already made appearances. Of course, the first Monday Night Raw on Netflix. In Indianapolis, in Toronto at Elimination Chamber, in London, in Brussels, in Glasgow, and in Vegas. He kept saying Las Vegas again, and Las Vegas. Cena ended up saying that we're down to 27 dates. Not 27 matches, but appearances. He ended up saying that the crowd says that he can't wrestle. Cena ended up saying that he doesn't have to wrestle. He just has to show up and do this. He then ended up going to say that when it hits 0, the professional wrestling timeline stops cold. Cena ended up saying that he isn't stupid like the people, and that there will be another Monday Night Raw, and they will decide another champion. He ended up saying that this title has been held by Bruno Sammartino, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk, and Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The WWE Championship comes home with him. And Cena ended up going on to say that he is the last real undisputed champion of the WWE. So Cena ended up saying that getting the title was the hard part, and the rest is a cakewalk. Cena ended up saying that he just has to play them like the puppets that they are. And he really was. Cena was playing the crowd like puppets. So Cena ended up saying that the best chance they had to save themselves was Cody Rhodes. So Cena ended up calling the crowd heartless bastards. So Cena ended up saying that the man, Cody Rhodes, they put on their shoulders last year to finish the story, now disgusts them. Because, of course, the fans were booing when he ended up mentioning Cody Rhodes. So Cena was like, that's what's wrong with this. He ended up saying last night Cody was outshined, outclassed, outwrestled, and he was flat out destroyed. He ended up saying that it's time for the crowd to take a bold look in the mirror, and that the truth is, there is no one in the WWE with the strength, the speed, the wisdom, or the ruthless aggression of John Cena. So Cena ended up saying, unlike the crowd, he has a heart, and he wants to do something nice for the crowd. Cena then ended up telling the crowd to get their cameras, because they'll want to remember this moment. Cena ended up telling the crowd to make sure they get a great picture, because the last real champ is here. So we saw Randy Orton. Randy Orton snuck up behind Cena. And Randy Orton laid out Cena with the RKO. We had the crowd end up erupting for Orton. Orton then picked up the Undisputed WWE Championship. He looked at the title, and he held it up. So pretty much that was basically how the segment ended. But overall, this was a good segment. Of course, it's the same old with John Cena, just talking shit to the crowd, putting the crowd down. And this setup with Orton RKOing Cena and holding up the Undisputed WWE Championship, this right here is your main event for Backlash next month in St. Louis. Of course, you're going to have to put something big for Randy Orton because Backlash is in his hometown of St. Louis. So why not go with that? Why not go with Cena and Randy Orton for the Undisputed WWE Championship? Like I said, that's going to be your main event of Backlash. But overall, good opening segment this was to Monday Night Raw. And then we had the first match of the night. The rematch for the Women's Tag Team Championship. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. They ended up taking on Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. Now, before the match got underway, we had Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. They ended up heading down to the ring. Of course, they lost the Women's Tag Team titles to Becky Lynch and Lyra last night on night 2 of Mania. So Liv and Raquel came out, and you had a point where Mark Nash was introducing Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And he had a few miscues. So he botched a few miscues here. So he finally ended up announcing Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And we also saw Tatum Paxley and Gigi Dolan, from NXT. They were sitting front row ringside. And whoever won the match here, Tatum Paxley and Gigi Dolan, will face for the women's tag team titles. So we had the match get underway. Liv Morgan immediately attacked Becky Lynch. She started stomping Becky down the corner, and she ended up hitting a running elbow to Becky. Liv then followed up with a running knee to Becky's face, and she delivered a basement drop kick. She went for the cover, to which Becky ended up kicking out. So then Liv started clubbing Becky's back a few times. Becky started fighting back with a forearm, but Liv Morgan ended up coming right back with a forearm to Becky. Becky then ended up stunning Liv with a kick to her midsection. Lyra then blank tagged in, so we had Becky and Lyra end up hitting Liv with a double team hip toss. Lyra then ended up hitting a running cross body block. She then ended up sending Liv Morgan into the corner. Lyra started stomping away at Liv. She ended up hitting some strikes to Liv's midsection. Raquel then ended up running in. Lyra then ended up cutting Raquel off. Raquel accidentally threw Lyra into Liv here at this point in the match. Lyra then ended up knocking Raquel out of the ring. Becky then tagged in. Becky and Lyra both ended up delivering stereo baseball slides to both Liv and Raquel. So that led to Monday Night Raw going to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Raquel was in control of the match. She kept stretching Lyra out. Lyra ended up getting up. So Raquel ended up taking Lyra down. Lyra ended up managing to get to her feet, and she delivered a step-up enziguri to Raquel. So this led to Becky and Liv Morgan tagging in. So Becky and Liv end up going out of here. Becky ended up hitting a pair of clotheslines to Liv, and Becky then followed that up with a jumping calf kick to Liv. Becky then delivered a running forearm, and she ended up sending Raquel into Liv. Becky then ended up hitting Liv and Raquel with springboard kicks. Becky then ended up sending Liv flying with a Bexploder. So Becky ended up going for the cover, and Liv ended up kicking out. Becky was going for the manhandle slam. Liv ended up countering out of that, and she ended up doing a roll-up on Becky, to which Becky kicked out. Becky ended up rolling through, and Liv ended up kicking out. Becky then ended up knocking Raquel off the apron. Liv then hit Becky with a code breaker. She then ended up going for the Oblivion, but Becky countered that Oblivion into a manhandle slam. So she ended up going for the cover, and Raquel broke up the pin. So Raquel ended up grabbing Becky, but Becky ended up delivering a jawbreaker. Raquel ended up responding with a big boot to Becky. Raquel then headed to the second rope, but Becky ended up cutting Raquel off. Becky then set up for a superplex, to which Lyra then tagged in. Lyra ended up helping Becky go for that superplex, but Liv Morgan ended up coming up, and she had powerbombing Becky. So at the end of the match, we had Becky ended up grabbing Raquel. Raquel started kicking away at Becky. Lyra ended up knocking Raquel off the apron into Becky. Liv then ended up hitting Lyra with the Oblivion. She ended up spiking Lyra right on her head with the Oblivion. And Liv ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez end up winning the match. So they are now 4-time Women's Tag Team Champions. So post-match, Becky Lynch, she was pretty upset. And she checked in on Lyra. Becky ended up helping Lyra up. She then hugged Lyra, which we all knew where this was going to go. So Becky then ended up hitting a clothesline to Lyra. So Becky was shown yelling at Lyra. Becky ended up going to leave the ring. She then returned to punch away at Lyra. Becky ended up going to leave again. She had returned, and she slowly walked up to Lyra. Becky ended up grabbing Lyra, ended up hitting the manhandle slam to Lyra. Becky then pulled Lyra back up and delivered a second manhandle slam to Lyra. So we had the crowd start chanting one more time because Becky ended up going to leave the ring. So Becky ended up obliging and she ended up hitting a third manhandle slam to Lyra, and pretty much that was basically that. So Becky Lynch turned heel on Lyra here. And my God, do we really need to see Becky Lynch once again as a heel? You all remember how cringe Becky Lynch was as a heel on the mic. And now we're going to get that again. God help us all. And Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez winning back the women's tag team titles? What was the point of them losing last night? Only for them to win the titles back tonight. I don't know what the hell was up with that. Bad creative there. Very bad. But still, it was a good match. I thought it was better than the match last night. And then we had the New Day. The New Day end up making their way to the ring. Kofi and Xavier Woods, which they end up winning the World Tag Team Championship from the War Raiders. So they got into the ring. Kofi ended up saying that they are the new WWE World Tag Team Champions. Xavier Woods ended up telling the crowd to get on their knees and scream in unison, "Thank God for the New Day," to which the crowd booed the both of them. Kofi ended up saying that there is no tag team, alive or dead, that is better than them. And he ended up saying, oh, well, everybody said, oh, we couldn't beat the War Raiders. And we did. So then the Alpha Academy ended up coming out. I'm surprised the Alpha Academy is still a thing. So Maxine Dupree and Otis and Akira Tozawa ended up coming out. And Maxine Dupree was on the mic. And I'm like, oh, God. Oh, God, here we go. So Maxine ended up saying that the New Day might be the greatest tag team ever. But the last time the New Day faced Otis and Tozawa, they beat them in 30 seconds. So Maxine ended up telling the New Day to put their money where their mouth is and to put the World Tag Team titles on the line here in Vegas. So the crowd ended up loving that. So he ended up saying to the crowd, oh, you want to see us put the World Tag Team titles on the line? No. So Maxine ended up asking if they're scared. And she ended up calling the New Day Minutemen. So Kofi wasn't happy with that, and the crowd started chanting Minutemen to the New Day. So Kofi was like, oh, you want a shot at the titles? Then let's go. Let's get a referee out here. So a referee ended up brought in, but the lights went out. The lights went out in the arena. And we got the return of Rusev. Yeah, Rusev ended up returning. He got a huge ovation from the crowd there. It was good to see Rusev back, since he hasn't been on TV since, he was Miro in AEW, where Tony Khan practically did nothing with Miro. So I'm really happy to see, Rusev here. And the crowd was chanting Rusev Day, which that was awesome. And Rusev hasn't been on WWE television in 5 years. So Rusev got into the ring. The New Day ended up retreating out of the ring, wanted nothing to do with Rusev. So Rusev took Otis down, and he ended up swatting Tozawa out of midair. Rusev then looked at the New Day, and, he's mouthing off to the New Day. So Tozawa was on the top rope. So Tozawa jumped off the top, and Rusev end up catching Tozawa. Rusev then delivered the fallaway slam to Tozawa. Otis got to his feet, and he ripped off his shirt. Rusev then kicked Otis with 2 thrust kicks to his head. Rusev then stomped away at Otis' spine, and Rusev then applied the accolade to Otis. And this led to the referee end up trying to break the accolade off of Rusev on Otis. So Rusev then released the accolade, and the crowd started chanting, "Rusev Day." So pretty much that was basically that. But Rusev interview return here, it's a little weird to me how, he ended up coming out and, the placement of, this was weird. And I'm like, is he going to be a tag team? Is he going to be in a tag team? Is he going to be feuding with the Alpha Academy or, the New Day? I'm like so confused on where this will go. Because, he was mounting off to the New Day, so, he was acting like a face there, but when he was attacking Tozawa and Otis, he came off as a heel. So I'm like, I don't know what the plan is for Rusev. So we'll see where this goes with Rusev. Hopefully, WWE does Rusev justice after he was misused for, years before, he got released and then went to AEW, and we all know what happened there. So, WWE, do Rusev justice. Give him a big push. He deserves it. You saw how he was misused for years. So hopefully Rusev gets his justice. And then we saw Dominik Mysterio. Dominik was celebrating with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Carlito was there. So Liv Morgan, Raquel, and Dominik were celebrating because, of course, Dominik won the Intercontinental Championship last night, and Liv and Raquel won back the women's tag team titles earlier in the night. So Finn Balor walked up, and he stared at Dominik. So Finn Balor ended up smiling, and he ended up saying, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." Because Liv Morgan was like, a win for one is a win for all. So Balor then turned to see Carlito. Carlito ended up saying to Balor, he's going to fix the fact that all of them don't have titles. So Balor then turned, and his eyes were locked on the Intercontinental Championship. And as you saw when Balor walked up to Dominik, he had a mad look on his face. And then he was like, "Oh, well, yeah." He gives a high five to Dominik. And I'm like, yeah, that high five, Balor's just playing you, Dominik. He's playing you. He wants that shot at the Intercontinental Championship. That's going to be coming soon. And we had the announcement of where Survivor Series is going to take place this year. And it was announced that Survivor Series is going to be at Petco Park in San Diego in November. So, Petco Park, from what I heard, it has no roof. And so if they're doing War Games, well, how is the War Games cage going to be suspended above? Who knows? Are they going to build pillars to have the cage hanging? The War Games cage hanging? Who knows? But yeah, that was the announcement. Survivor Series going to be in Petco Park in San Diego in November. Good that we're having an outdoor Survivor Series. And then we had Iyo Sky, the Women's World Champion. She ended up defeating Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair last night to retain the Women's World Championship. So she ended up coming out. She got on the mic, to which Iyo, in my opinion, she is terrible on the mic. I think Iyo needs to have a translator for her on the mic. But she ended up saying that last night was the best night of her career. She ended up saying that she is over the moon because she beat the best there is. That means that she's the best. She ended up saying that Rhea Ripley tried to forget her. To which the crowd started chanting, "You deserve it," to Iyo. So she ended up saying that Bianca Belair tried to forget her. And she ended up saying now the crowd will never forget her. Iyo then ended up yelling in Japanese. She then ended up saying that she is the genius of the Sky. She is Iyo Sky, and she is the Women's World Champion. And then we had a surprise. We had the NXT Women's Champion, Stephanie Vaquer, end up coming out. It was great to see Stephanie Vaquer on Monday Night Raw here. Of course, she's going to be facing Roxanne Perez for the title tomorrow night on NXT, which should be a very good match there. So Stephanie Vaquer got into the ring. She congratulated Iyo on retaining the Women's World Championship. Stephanie then introduced herself to Iyo. Stephanie ended up saying that she is out here to show respect to Iyo. So then the crowd started chanting La Primera. So that got a chant. Stephanie ended up saying that Iyo is amazing and that she is here to show her respect. She ended up saying that Iyo is the best, but she is not the only one. Stephanie Vaquer ended up saying that she wants to fight with the best of the best. So Iyo ended up asking if Stephanie wants to face. Iyo then accepted the challenge, and Iyo suggested that her and Stephanie do it right here and now. To which Adam Pearce ended up coming out. Adam Pearce came out to boos from the crowd because the crowd was thinking, oh no, this is not going to go down tonight. So Pearce ended up saying that he knows that the crowd wants to see the match, but he wants to make sure Vegas wants it. So the crowd there ended up cheering. Pearce ended up saying that he wants to see the match as well. So he then made the match official. Iyo Sky versus Stephanie Vaquer. To which the match ended up getting on the way, which this was a very good match. This was a dream match, in my opinion. Seeing, the Women's World Champion and the NXT Women's Champion going at it one-on-one. This was great. So the bell ended up ringing. Both Iyo and Vaquer ended up shaking hands. Both women locked up. Iyo applied a waistlock on Vaquer. Vaquer ended up getting out of the waistlock and took Iyo down. Vaquer ended up applying a front face lock. Iyo then twisted out of the front face lock. Vaquer ended up getting out of a hamlock that was locked in from Iyo, and she took Iyo down. Iyo then ended up wrenching Vaquer's arm, but Vaquer ended up twisting out of that. Vaquer ended up taking Iyo down. She ended up going for the cover, to which Iyo immediately kicked out. Iyo then ended up taking Vaquer down, and she ended up going for the cover, which got no count as well. So the crowd was really into this. The crowd was into this match. They gave both women a nice ovation. So Iyo ended up sending Vaquer into the ropes. Vaquer ended up going for a head scissors takeover, but Iyo ended up landing on her feet. Vaquer ended up hitting the ropes and grabbed Iyo, but Iyo ended up holding on to the ropes and ended up fighting Vaquer off. We had Iyo end up doing a handspring, and she ended up drop kicking Vaquer out of the ring. Iyo ended up hitting the ropes, and she took Vaquer out with a suicide dive. So Iyo ended up going to put Vaquer into the ring. Vaquer ended up twisting, ended up kicking Iyo in her face. Vaquer ended up charging at Iyo, but Iyo ended up sending Vaquer into the timekeeper's area. Vaquer ended up quickly popping up, and she ended up delivering a big cross-body block to Iyo off of the barricade, which was cool. So then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Iyo was in control of the match. She ended up cutting Vaquer off as she went up to the top rope. Vaquer ended up punching Iyo off, and Iyo ended up getting to her feet. Iyo ended up finally climbing the ropes, and she ended up pinning an arm drag off the top ropes to Vaquer. But unfortunately, at the end of the match ended in a disqualification. Iyo ended up recovering, and we had Vaquer end up going to the top rope. Iyo ended up hitting Vaquer with an uppercut, so Iyo ended up grabbing Vaquer on the top rope, and she nearly lost her balance. Iyo nearly lost her balance coming onto the top rope. So Iyo ended up connecting with the Spanish Fly off the top rope, which looked great. So Iyo was sizing Vaquer up, but she ended up getting attacked by Roxanne Perez. So the ref called for the bell, who was Jessica Carr. She ended up calling for the bell. Iyo won the match by disqualification. Vaquer was looking all confused, like, what is happening? So not only did we get Roxanne Perez, we got Julia. Julia ended up attacking Vaquer from behind. So it was Roxanne Perez and Julia ended up attacking Vaquer and Iyo Sky. Roxanne Perez ended up attacking Iyo. Julia took it to Vaquer. And then we saw Rhea Ripley end up coming out. Rhea Ripley ran out. She had a black eye on her left eye. So she ran out to make the save for Vaquer and Iyo. Perez then ended up charging Rhea Ripley, but Rhea Ripley ended up taking Perez down, and she knocked Perez out of the ring with the headbutt. Julia then ended up staring down at Rhea Ripley. And they both circled the ring, which this might set up for a future match that I would like to see. Rhea Ripley versus Julia? Take my money. I would love to see that happen. Rhea Ripley versus Julia? Give that to me. So Rhea Ripley ended up snaring at Roxanne Perez and Julia as Julia ended up leaving the ring. Rhea then turned and looked down at Iyo. Rhea then ended up grabbing the Women's World Championship, and she stared at Iyo. Rhea Ripley ended up handing the title to Iyo, and if you read Rhea's lips, she ended up saying she's coming for the title. So apparently, Rhea wants another shot at the Women's World Championship. But this was really good. I really enjoyed this match with Iyo and Stephanie Vaquer. Of course, it had to come to a disqualification. Man, this women's division, man, it is really good. And Stephanie Vaquer, proved that she was ready for the main roster. And you saw it right here with her versus Iyo. And I don't know. This probably looks like maybe Triple H reset the division. Hopefully that's the case. But yeah, we saw Stephanie Vaquer. We saw Julia. We saw Roxanne Perez. Hopefully, wanted Roxanne Perez to get the call up to the main roster. But this was good. Very good showcasing between Iyo and Stephanie Vaquer here. And the crowd appreciated it. Good showcasing. And then we had Jey Uso, the new World Heavyweight Champion. He defeated Gunther on night one of WrestleMania, which was the opening match to night one. So Jey Uso came out, got a big ovation. Everybody was yeeting with Jey. And of course, he ended up coming down through the crowd. He led a yeet dance to everybody there in the T-Mobile Arena. So the crowd was chanting one more time, for, Jey Uso's music to play and him yeeting along with the crowd. And Jey, of course, ended up obliging and his music played and it got a big ovation. Everybody going, yeet. And what I really liked was we saw a very nice visual of Jey Uso standing on the turnbuckles as the entire crowd was chanting yeet. Very good visual there. So Jay finally got on the mic. He ended up saying that the World Heavyweight Champion is now in your city. Jay ended up saying that he's here now. And that he's wanted this since he was a kid. And he's here now. He ended up saying that it was a hard road that wasn't easy. He ended up saying that at WrestleMania, he gave all he had to beat Gunther. And he made Gunther tap. So, of course, the crowd chanted, "He tapped out! He tapped out!" So Jay ended up saying that he's very grateful and happy to have the World Heavyweight Championship on his shoulder. He ended up saying that he'll show up every week and day to put in the work, just as he always has. And he ended up asking the crowd if they're excited to have him as the World Heavyweight Champion. Then he wants to hear the crowd say, "Yeet," and the whole crowd let out a yeet. So now we got Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn ended up coming out. He returned. We haven't saw Sami Zayn since Elimination Chamber when he lost to Kevin Owens. So Sami Zayn got into the ring, and he embraced with Jey Uso. We had the crowd end up chanting, "Sami Uso." Sami got on the mic. He ended up saying that he has a lot to say. He ended up saying not being here for the last 8 weeks, while Jay went through everything he did, what Gunther was hard on him. He ended up saying to Jay that he wishes he could have been here. He ended up saying that missing WrestleMania this year was hard. He ended up saying that they don't do well on the sidelines. And that Sami ended up saying that he almost didn't come to Vegas at all. But he had to because he wanted to make sure he was the first one to stand across the ring from Jay, look him in the eye, man to man, with the World Heavyweight Championship on his shoulder, and tell him how proud he is of Jay. So we heard it in Sami Zayn's voice as he was saying that. He sounded, like his voice was cracking with emotion. So Sami ended up saying that Jay is his brother, and he is proud of him. He ended up saying that everyone knows that Jay deserves the World Heavyweight Championship. Sami ended up saying that it's the Raw after WrestleMania, and he doesn't want to get sentimental. He ended up saying that they're here to celebrate. Sami ended up telling the production crew in the back to hit Jey Uso's music. So Jay's music ended up playing, and both Sami and Jay posed on the turnbuckles. Jay and Sami ended up leading the crowd in the yeet dance again. Sami then ended up getting down, and he stood behind Jay. And we all thought that something was going to happen, with maybe Sami turn heel on Jay and won a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship. But that didn't happen. So we had Jay end up getting down from the turnbuckle. He turned around, and Sami ended up hugging him. So Jimmy Uso ended up coming out. We saw Jimmy Uso here after, weeks ago where he got beat down by Gunther, bloodied up. So Jimmy and Sami Zayn end up pulling Jay's arms up, and they celebrated with the crowd. Of course, another yeet dance. And pretty much that was basically that. Pretty much 90% of this segment was a yeet dance. That's all it was. An absolute yeet dance. But, it's Jay celebrating. I mean, he won the World Heavyweight Championship. I don't know if you all saw the post-show on Saturday where it sounded like Jay was drunk while he was doing the post-show interview where, the interviewers were asking him questions, the dirt sheets. And then we saw a video from Kathy Kelly where she interviewed Logan Paul last night after WrestleMania. Kathy Kelly ended up asking Logan Paul if he could have pulled out the win without his manager and Karrion Kross coming out. Logan Paul ended up saying that a win is a win. All he knows is that he won. So Kathy Kelly then ended up asking Logan Paul what's next for him. So Logan Paul ended up saying that anything he wants, he'll do anything in this company. He ended up saying that anyone in the ring with him is a victim. and he'll continue his win streak at WrestleMania. That was what Logan Paul had to say, pretty much calling out anybody who wants to get into the ring with him. And then we saw Jackie Redmond. She was backstage with AJ Styles. Styles ended up telling Jackie Redmond that losing last night was a hard pill to swallow. He ended up saying that Logan Paul used his lackey to help, but he's moving on. Styles ended up saying that part of being phenomenal is bouncing back. So Karrion Kross ended up coming up to Styles. Of course, Kross was there along with Scarlett. Kross ended up telling Styles that there is no bouncing back from getting pinned by Logan Paul. Styles ended up saying to Karrion Kross that he hated the person he saw in the mirror last year. He ended up saying that if he hit Logan Paul with the brass knucks, the win would have meant nothing. Because Karrion Kross was trying to convince and have AJ Styles knock out Logan Paul with the brass knucks, but Styles did not do that. He threw the brass knucks, and he punched Karrion Kross. So Styles ended up telling Kross that if he wants to be angry at the world, he shouldn't take him down with him. Styles ended up telling Kross to solve the problem himself. So Kross was like, well, maybe I will. So that was that. And then we saw a preview of the new WWE show coming to Netflix this summer called WWE Unreal, which is going to be like a reality show of what goes down behind the scenes, like with creative and writers. So that's going to be an interesting watch. I'm looking forward to checking it out. And then as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we saw Gunther out there. Gunther was yelling at Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. And Michael Cole got up to his feet. He ended up telling Gunther that he's just doing his job. And pretty much Gunther was unpleased with what Michael Cole and Pat McAfee had to say about him, I guess, when he tapped out to Jey Uso. So Michael Cole ended up telling Gunther that he's not the one who tapped out. So that pissed off Gunther. Gunther then ended up swatting Michael Cole's headset off. Gunther ended up shoving Pat McAfee to the ground. Gunther then grabbed Michael Cole. And Gunther ended up applying the sleeper hold on Michael Cole. And Pat McAfee ended up bringing up the sleeper hold with a forearm to Gunther's head. Adam Pearce then ran down with officials and refs to try to get things to calm down. Gunther then charged, and he grabbed Pat McAfee. Gunther ended up locking Pat McAfee in the sleeper hold. He ended up putting Pat McAfee to sleep. And right when Gunther locked in that sleeper hold on Pat McAfee's face was all red. So we had members of Pat McAfee's show trying to help him out, but they were held back by the officials and the refs. Pat McAfee was unconscious. Gunther wouldn't release the sleeper hold. Crowd were chanting, "Fuck you, Gunther." Gunther then released the hold and he walked off. So Michael Cole was shouting for medics to come and check out Pat McAfee. McAfee ended up regaining some consciousness to him. Michael Cole and Adam Pearce and refs and officials ended up helping Pat McAfee to the back. And you just heard McAfee was struggling to catch his breath. He was coughing, a little bit, selling that sleeper hold locked in from Gunther. But this was a very good segment. And Gunther is now unhinged after losing the World Heavyweight Championship to Jey Uso. I'm interested in where they're going to take Gunther now. What's next for Gunther? And from the looks of it, could we be getting Gunther versus Pat McAfee Maybe. So, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Joe Tessitore was now taking over commentary because Pat McAfee and Michael Cole were going to the back. Pat McAfee was surrounded by officials, Michael Cole and Adam Pearce. McAfee was shown still coughing and struggling to breathe, selling, the sleeper hold by Gunther. So they ended up getting Pat McAfee into the trainer's room. Adam Pearce ended up telling Michael Cole to take the rest of the night off. And Michael Cole was like to Pat McAfee, I think Gunther might have broke my nose. He ended up saying that Pearce has to do something about Gunther because he needs to be able to do his job and express his opinions. So Pat McAfee was like, all right, we'll figure something out. Take the rest of the night off. So then Michael Cole was like to Adam Pearce, I'm not going to let a bully stop me on WrestleMania week, which that got a good ovation from the crowd there. Much respect for Michael Cole to say that to Adam Pearce. So Michael Cole went back out there and did his job, did commentary for the rest of the show. So, props to Michael Cole for continuing with the show. If he might have had a broken nose, he's not going to let a broken nose down by, just taking the night off because of that. So good on Michael Cole for that. And then we had Dominik Mysterio versus Penta. This was for the Intercontinental Championship. Good match this was. Of course, we had Dominik Mysterio being accompanied by Finn Balor and Carlito. And the crowd was behind Dominik here. The match got underway. Dominik started talking trash to Penta. He started clubbing away at Penta. Dominik ended up sending Penta into the ropes, and he leapfrogged Penta, but Penta started fighting back with a kick to Dominik. Dominik then ended up getting the better of Penta and started stomping him down. Penta then ended up slingshotting over Dominik and ended up hitting a run Hurricanrana. Dominik then rolled out of the ring to recover. Penta ended up setting up for a dive, but Dominik ended up cutting Penta off with a drop kick. Balor then ended up teasing to attack Penta, but Dominik ended up going for a suicide dive. Penta ended up kicking Dominik in his head. Penta came off the top rope with a diving crossbody block, to which Dominik then rolled out of the ring. Penta then ended up flooring Dominik with a tope con hilo, which was cool. So then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Penta ended up hitting Dominik with a reverse sling blade. Penta then ended up dropping Dominik in the corner and ended up hitting a handstand slingshot drop kick, to which he ended up going for the cover, to which Dominik kicked out. So Penta ended up going for the Penta driver, but Dominik ended up getting out, and he connected with a Michinoku driver on Penta, to which he went for the cover, and Penta ended up kicking out. So at the end of the match, we had Penta end up putting Dominik in the ring. He headed to the top rope. And then we got the return of J.D. McDonough. So J.D. McDonough ended up returning. He ended up pushing Penta off the top rope as Carlito was distracting the referee. Dominik then ended up knocking Penta into position for the 619, to which Dominik connected with the 619 on Penta. And Dominik immediately ended up going up to the top rope and delivered the frog splash on Penta. He went for the cover, and there you go. Dominik Mysterio ended up winning the match, retaining the Intercontinental Championship. So, post-match, the Judgment Day ended up celebrating on the ramp. Liv Morgan and Raquel ended up coming out, and Finn Balor was the only one that did not look happy as the rest of them. So, pretty much that was basically that. I mean, good match it was between Dominik and Penta here. And then we had the final segment of the night. Seth Rollins ended up coming out. Of course, Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman ended up coming out. Rollins, of course, is the new Paul Heyman guy. Paul Heyman, of course, turned on CM Punk and Roman Reigns in the main event of night one, leading Rollins to win the match. But Seth Rollins, he was wearing a yellow suit. looked like a banana wearing that suit. Paul Heyman was sporting a yellow tie, and of course the crowd got in there, whoa, for Seth Rollins' theme music. So we had a CM Punk and OTC chant as Rollins and Heyman were in the ring. And then the crowd started chanting, "Fuck you, Heyman." Rollins then stared coldly into the camera. He got on the mic. He kept saying that he is a revolutionary, he is a visionary. He then ended up saying, "I took a wise man from Roman Reigns. I stole CM Punk's best friend. I am the winner of the main event of WrestleMania." And then he got interrupted by CM Punk. Punk ended up coming out, big ovation from the crowd. Punk came out, tapping his right arm, and Rollins was preparing to fight Punk. Rollins and Punk began brawling in the center of the ring. Punk ended up getting Rollins into the corner and started unloading on him. He started punching and stopping Rollins down. Paul Heyman looked nervous in the corner. So Punk turned and he looked at his former best friend, Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman was like to Punk, "Oh, you screwed up by compromising your relationship with my tribal chief." So Punk then grabbed Paul Heyman and pushed Heyman to the corner. Rollins then grabbed Punk and he raked Punk's eyes. Rollins then ended up driving Punk's skull into the mat with the stomp. So Paul Heyman ended up standing over CM Punk. So we got the credits flashing on the screen. And you're thinking, oh, it's over already. Nope. The show wasn't over yet. So Paul Heyman got on the mic. He ended up saying, "We are going to conclude the weekend of WrestleMania 41 by propelling the news all the way to WrestleMania 42 for next year." Paul Heyman ended up saying that there is a new reigning, defending, undisputed #1 top star in this entire industry. So he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Seth frickin' Rollins." So Paul Heyman then held Rollins' arms up. Roman Reigns' music ended up hitting. Roman came out, looked frustrated. Rollins then dumped an unconscious Punk out of the ring. And Reigns ended up coming out. It took like 2-3 minutes for Roman to come out from the back. So as Reigns ended up heading to the ring, he ended up ducking a clothesline from Rollins. And Reigns then delivered a spear to Rollins. Rollins ended up selling that spear good from Roman. So Paul Heyman ended up looking surprised. Reigns then ended up flooring his former wise man with a Superman punch. He laid out Paul Heyman with the Superman punch. Hilarious how Heyman sold that Superman punch. So Reigns was sent up for a spear to Paul Heyman. And then from out of nowhere, we had a guy in a black hoodie spear Reigns. And that guy turned out to be Braun Breaker. So Rollins looked all confused here. Breaker ended up charging past Rollins and he hit Punk with the spear. So Rollins then ended up embracing Braun Breaker, showing that they were in on this whole thing. So Breaker ended up going to the outside to attack Reigns, but Reigns started punching Breaker back. Breaker then ended up running around the ring and he put Reigns through the barricade with a spear. Breaker then grabbed Reigns and rolled him into the ring. Breaker then held Reigns in position. So Punk started to come up. Rollins ended up taking Punk out with another stomp. Rollins then ended up telling Reigns that the future of this business runs through him. So Rollins then delivered a stomp to Reigns. Paul Heyman looked pleased with Braun Breaker. So Paul Heyman ended up posing with Rollins and Braun Breaker, and that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air. So Braun Breaker is now another Paul Heyman guy. So, what this looks like with Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, and Seth Rollins. We're going to be getting a faction with the three of them. What the name of that faction will be, who knows? But really liked this ending segment here. I thought this was good. I thought this was a good way to have Braun Breaker come in there and be another Paul Heyman guy and align with Heyman and Rollins. You know, this is going to be good. We'll like to see where this will go with Breaker, Rollins, and Paul Heyman. But overall, Monday Night Raw, the Raw after WrestleMania, very good show it was, and a lot better than both nights of WrestleMania combined. Very good show it was. But anyway, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Be sure to check out episode 14 of the Movie Fanatics tomorrow on my buddy Luke Ponto's channel. We'll be going live at 8:30. So tune in for that tomorrow on my buddy Luke Ponto's channel. If you haven't checked out his channel, subscribe to him. If you like what you see, give him a subscribe. Comment on his videos. He does great reviews. So check us out tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later.